Hey everybody, it's me, and I'm online today to give a word to those who will listen. So, the other day I was having a conversation with my best friend of 21 years, and he and I always have conversations, and they're always like really good conversations, really rich, and we always like praise one another for being so strong. But this conversation stood out to me because it was the first time that I realized that I had come a long way in my journey to try and heal my childhood trauma and what I had done to get to this point. Once I realized that I was at that point, I was like, oh, this is where I've always wanted to be in my journey. I'm finally here. And I wanted to talk more about, what that conversation was and what it led up to, and also how I got here. Because you will hear a lot of people say, oh, trust the process, and you hear all these things while you're on your journey. But rarely do people talk about their journey, and I'm looking forward to putting more videos out like this on Facebook and being more transparent about my journey. I don't think I'll be super transparent in this video other than about the conversation, of course, because I wouldn't be on here, but I don't think I'll go too deep into it because I want this video to kind of be like short and simple and to the point. It might not be short, but if you'll have me, listen up. So, the conversation that we had the other day was a conversation about my childhood trauma and how I felt about different things and different things that have happened in my life, or different people in my life, or the people that's not there. So he asked me, my best friend asked me about my relationship with my mom and how I felt about her passing on, and also the trauma that came along with her passing on, and also the trauma that came along before she passed on. And I was just really vulnerable with him and really honest with him when I said to him, everything up until the age of 18 was not my fault. Like, I had no control over that. Like, your life until you're about 17, 18, for some of us, is younger than that, depending on our life and how we have shown up, or life has shown up for us. It could be younger, but for me, I was about 17 when I started to really do things on my own and to really look at things for what they were. And so I was telling him that it's super imperative that I realized on my journey that the things that happened to me within that time frame were not my fault. And yes, they still hurt. Yes, it leaves a scar. But literally me deciding that I will do things differently in my adulthood is what led me here. So one of the things I do, or I have done while addressing my trauma, is go to therapy. Therapy and counseling. I don't go to therapy consistently. I kind of go to therapy or talk to someone on a need to talk to basis, but I also do self-isolation therapy, and what that looks like for me is journaling and also removing myself from what I feel are toxic situations. If you know me, you know that I often like to be alone. I'm one of those people who I need my alone time to sort of just process everything. So for me, processing is very important. So, with that being said, I was telling my best friend, he was asking me, how do you feel about your mom? And he was referring to her, being deceased and having been deceased since 2015. And I said, I have come to terms with the fact that she is not coming back. Like, she's gone. She's not coming back. And I had to come to terms with that. Yes, I miss her, but life with her wasn't necessarily the easiest either. If you come from a dysfunctional family, then you understand. If you are the black sheep or feel like the black sheep of the family, you do understand. If you know that you've come from a dysfunctional family, you know that they all have, some of my family members have very narcissistic ways. And just as long as you were in that cycle, we were in that cycle for about 17, 18 years, it'll take longer for you to come out of that cycle. So maybe if you were in it for 18 years, it'll take I don't know, about 20 years for you to come out of it. So I'm like, I was telling my best friend that it has not been easy, but one of the things that has helped me come to grips with everything and accept everything is knowing that it wasn't my fault. Like, I had no control. And by the time I did have control, I started to act out. And those traumas started to rear their ugly head, where I was trying to control a certain situation, or I would get into narcissistic relationships thinking that, I could change a person, or that this person would change for me, because honestly, I never tried to change a person. I just always thought that they would change eventually, because of where I came from. I never actively tried to change a person, saying, you need to change this and you need to be this way. No, that's not the type of person I am. But there was a time in my life where I was attracted to those who I felt like I would have an impact on, or that I could fix. And oftentimes, those who come from narcissistic households, that's how we roll. We think like we are the nice ones, we can fix everything. But the reality of the situation for me in coming out of that was realizing that the only person that you have control over, and the only thing that you have control over, is you and your emotions. How you show up, how you react, and how you handle your emotions overall is all you have. That's it. Excuse me. Literally, that's all you have. So in my talking to him, I was just really honest about what it took for me to get to this point where I'm no longer crying about it. Because I was really honest with him. I was like, I'm tired of crying. Nobody wants to just be crying all the time, complaining all the time, whatever the case may be. I mean, if that is your way of coping with it, if you cry, by all means, definitely cry. But once you have the tools in your tool belt to address it and to talk about it, there is no need to cry about it anymore. Like, me not having a father, for instance, I think we talked about that as well. And I was like, you can't miss what you never had. Like, I had very strong father figures, and I still made the mistakes I made as a woman. I had a stepfather. I had several stepfathers. My mom was married twice, and I had my biological mother was married twice, and my aunt had long-term relationships. Like, we knew men as our stepfathers. Not too many men, but I'm just saying, like, we had very strong, whether it was my mother's best friend who was a male, whether it was my best friend, I had strong role models. Like, there was no shortage of strong male role models in my life, whether it was a father or not. So I don't feel slighted. After understanding where my mom was when she had me, my mom had me in the late 1980s. So understanding where she was when she had me and what she was doing in her life led me to understand why I don't have a father, or why I have a father but he's not present in my life. You know what I mean? And understanding that and being okay with that, and understanding what something is for what it is, has really led to a life of ease. And this is what this conversation is about. Like, how I got to a life of ease. Doesn't mean that everything is easy, because I could see somebody saying, oh, well, she wants her life to be easy. No, I just want to be able to accept what is, and move on as quickly as possible if need be. Accept the ebbs and flows of life. I think that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants ease, a life of ease and peace, especially when you come from a dysfunctional family full of like narcissistic people with narcissistic ways, even if they're not narcissists themselves. Like I'm the nice girl who runs into that shit all the time, excuse my language, but I run into that all the time, where there's somebody out there that's trying to prey upon your vulnerabilities, and I learned how not to be vulnerable. But instead of not being vulnerable, I've just learned to look at that person for who he or she is, because it could be male or female, and say, like, this is a narcissist and I need to control my emotions when talking to this person. Or you just need to control your emotions all the way around. And I promise you that learning how to control your emotions and control how you react to certain things controls your whole environment. You don't have to go after a certain person or a certain thing to control yourself. Control yourself. Realize that you had no control at a certain point. Realize that you have it now as an adult. And do the best you can to control yourself, to control your emotions, and to show up as that person who is controlled, who is peaceful, who is confident, etc. And yes, people will still be irritated. People will be mad, upset, whatever the case may be. They will, whatever the case may be, that is how it will show up for some people, whatever the case may be. But two things that led me here was, therapy and isolation therapy, and then realizing things for what they truly were, realizing that, the people in my life that I trusted didn't necessarily do the best that they could do, but that they did do the best with what they had. They didn't have all the tools in their tool belt. The reality of it is realizing that my mom was born in the 1960s and I was born somewhere in the 1980s, tail end of the 1980s. We all know as millennials, we're just waking up to the fact that adulthood is hard, and our childhoods were probably off the fucking charts. They were hard. They just were. And coming to terms with that and realizing things for what they are ultimately leads to peace of mind. It just does. It doesn't make the problem go away. It doesn't make you not wish that things were different, but it does make it easier for you to continue, right? Because we have a life to live. Right? We still have a life to live after the 18 years of gaslighting, after the 18 years of narcissistic abuse that we have endured as a part of a dysfunctional family. So that conversation just really helped me put things into perspective. Like, it really woke me up a little bit as to what it has taken and what it will continue to take. Because, it's not a one and done thing. It still takes a lot of determination to press forward, to address your issues as they come up. Like, it's so hard for me sometimes in the moment to be like, to step back. It's so hard for me not to respond or to find the words sometimes, but I continue to go to therapy. I continue to talk when I need to talk, speak up when I need to speak up, because there was a time when I didn't speak up. There was a time when I didn't say anything. And I think it's important for people to realize that eventually you will have to say something. Eventually you will have to speak up. Eventually you will have to come to terms. And it takes time. It takes time and it takes determination. You have to be determined. It's just something within me that was set off when I was a kid. I was always outspoken. And then, things that happen within within that age range of 0 to 18, all of that stopped for a brief second, and then you go along and you pick up where you sort of left off. You pick back up. And I mean, even me recording this video is me picking back up and realizing that I've come a long way and that I have a voice. And like I said, this video is just for those who who want to listen to a word. It's a word because how did I get here? I really stayed steadfast on my journey. I really looked at things for what they really are. I really accepted things for what they really are. And it's hard. When you finally see things for what they are, you're going to cry it out. You're going to have a moment. You're going to have several moments. And I mean, for me, it was a messy journey, but hopefully I can get more into recording videos and going into my journey of messiness and crying and getting through it. But I just wanted to share that everything works itself out, and we have to remember that as much as a time that we've had in life, because honey, it's been a time in this life. It's been a time. So have those who raised us. They've had a time too, and it's okay to give them grace and forgive them so that you can begin to forgive yourself. Like, I never understood that until recently. Like, unless you forgive them, you'll never be able to forgive yourself, because you're looking at it from I'm hurt standpoint instead of looking at it from the standpoint of they were hurting, and as a result, they hurt me, and it wasn't my fault. The minute you remove the fault from you, forgiveness helps you do that. Forgiveness helps you remove fault, and everybody's had a time. Everybody's had a time. So hopefully I didn't rant too much, but, peace. See you later.